Atini se Yesu yodo amba Ejona miye oye amba oye 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 Omaye bokase oye 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 Mikra sorina to Johnse oye amba Ejona miye oye amba oye 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 Omaye bokanse oye 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 Mikra sorina to Johnse oye amba Ejona miye oye amba oye 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 Ranyo waye myo oye 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 Ranyo weje wonso oye 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 Ranyo waye myo oye 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 Ranyo weje wonso oye 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 Mekam oye 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 Mekam oye 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 Myambana menyo oye 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 oyo batan papa oye 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 Nguvu yetu ilete baraka kwetu, haki iwe ngao na mlinzi, na tukae na udugu, amani na uhuru, raha tupate na ustawi. Twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. University of Nairobi, we labor on together in search for knowledge and truth. We bless and honor thee. We are the pinnacle of excellence in knowledge, knowledge to serve our motherland. O Kenya, knowledge to serve all mankind. Be noted that my pride, let excellence prevail. May we ocean the pitfall of being the ivory tower. With sacrifice and dedication, our problems will overcome. With sacrifice and dedication, our problems will overcome. We are the fount of knowledge. We create, we own the vision. God give us grace to serve, and the future for us is bright. And the children shall drink from the fount of
Thank you very much. Sorry for the technology. I would like to invite Father Kaigua to give a word of prayer before we start our occasion.
May I request that we be upstanding, please, and pray. Good our Father, we thank you for the spirit of the unbowed that you gave this country in the immortal soul of the great woman Wangari Maathai, who, having accomplished her duty to inform our conscience as a nation and indeed as a whole world on the value of creation, of nature, of our being, and that we further on her work to mind and care for our homeland, the world that you created, O God. We thank you as the University of Nairobi, and in partnership with many stakeholders, and especially the GCA and our government, that we participate to govern nature and to do as stewards to creation, responding to the great call and to issues that go towards providing solutions for better life for us who we live now and for generations to come. Through teaching, through innovation, and through research, help us as a university to participate in this great call. Help us to care more and be united in provision of safe environment for our rivers, for our forests, for our Wangari Maathai, who came to you, who taught us these values, live on in our memories and live on in our duty to guard and safeguard the creation. Bless the activities of this day as we continue responding to the call to be your stewards. And we make our prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
You may be seated. Your Excellency, Madam Liz Shuruto, Honorable Cabinet Secretary Saipan Tuya, our VC Professor Kiama Gitahi, Head of Institutions, our faculty members and students and other stakeholders, you are very much welcome this particular morning to Wangari Maathai Institute. And it's an institute that was constructed in the honor of Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai to immortalize, celebrate her work and works, and to immortalize the ideas that she gave us for very many years. And the best that we can do is see how best we can actually be able to use them to improve humanity. I would like to acknowledge that there are several stakeholders who have been invited here. Global Center for Adaptation, with offices, head office in Netherlands, Rotterdam, which is also the CEO is the district chair for Wangari Maathai Institute. And there's a great honor to have him today. We also have representation from NEMA. We have representation from Kenya Forest Service. We have representation from the Kenya Forest Research Institute. We have representation from the Met Organization. We have representation from the National Drought Management Authority. We also have a representation from civil societies like Pan-African Climate Justice, that is very keen on climate change, WWF, World Resource Institute, Kenya Organic Organization. We have information represented from IFAM, from NAMAT, from KCB Group, Lake Basin Development Authority, SNP. We also have representation from TALDA, the organization called ACT, a civil society, Crop Nuts, a private organization. We also have representation from Carlo, Oxfam, Greenbelt, and I would like also to appreciate the Dean and Chairman of faculties within the University of Nairobi, as well as other graduate and postgraduate students who have joined us today. And if there are any omission, like to apologize for that. And also like to recognize the former Vice Chancellor of the University of the immediate former Vice Chancellor, Professor Peter Bidhi, who is with us today, and also Madam Wajela, the daughter to Wangari Maathai. Most welcome. I feel welcome. A few housekeeping issues. The place is quite wide. You can take a walk after the function. To my left, there are washrooms that are mobile, that are there for use. And inside the building, both to the right on the left and the ground floor, there are also washrooms, and you can use them. They'll be guided. There are people that will be able to guide you in that particular area. Yes, Andrew. Thank you very much. Andrew, please come and take over the rest.
Her Excellency Rachel Ruto, First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Her Excellency Rosalinda Soipantua, Cabinet Minister, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Vice Chancellor Professor S.J. Kiyama, Dr. Professor Patrick Verkoinen, CEO of the GCA and Distinguished Chair of the Wangari Maathai Institute, distinguished colleagues and dear friends. It is my honor to moderate this event today to celebrate and to support Kenya's leadership on adaptation. My name is Anju Sharma, and I lead the GCA's program on locally led adaptation. So I may be a bit biased here, but I think that the reason that Kenya leads today on adaptation globally is because of the commitment that the country made in its constitution to decentralization. There are other countries that have made similar commitments and have constitutional mandates, but Kenya actually walked the talk by ensuring that there was fiduciary devolution as well. And I think that is what has unleashed the sort of potential of communities to come up with solutions and to work in really close partnerships with their government to solve many problems that the world is trying to fix today. And we have, in the event, you'll hear several of those examples. But before we come to that, I'd like to invite Professor S.J. Kiyama, Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, to make some welcome remarks.
Yes, good morning, everyone. It's morning now. Your Excellency, the First Lady, Madam Rachel Ruto, we are very grateful for you to have honored us with your presence this morning at this institute, the Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. You know, Wangari was very fond of environment, and we are happy that you're also a champion for environment. So we can clap for her for being here with us. Yeah. The CS, environment, the Rosalinda Tuya. You know, I remember when I think it's the Vice President was saying they are going to get someone, yeah, who is going to be really protective for the environment. We are happy that you are here also with us. I'm happy for that Patrick Verkoinen is also here today. Patrick Verkoinen is the CEO of GCA and also the distinguished chair of Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. The first distinguished chair was Professor Wangari Maathai herself. Where you are this morning, it's an institute called Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. I'm happy to see also Professor Peter Bidhi seated here. Professor Peter Bidhi was the Vice Chancellor before I took up this responsibility. And he was the DVC, Administration and Finance, when we were conceptualizing this institute, and with a lot of support from him also, and he also was Vice Chancellor. You know, Wangari Maathai was very keen about issues of environment, and she did it initially without any possession, yeah. It's not a position she was given so that she can go and do what she did, yeah. She just emerged as a leader, and she was therefore given opportunities all over the world to meet anyone as a leader on issues of environment and environmental governance. And I think even as we converge here about leadership in adaptation to climate change, that is the language we want to talk about, that wherever you are, the world is looking up on you to contain issues of climate change, to offer leadership. But we believe as a university that to deal with this, we require the next generation, the young people, the universities, and we require, more importantly, also collaboration. That's why we are collaborating with the government, we are collaborating with the GCA, and all the partners that are here, because this is not a problem that can be solved by one person. That collaboration is critical to containing climate change. You know, when we had COVID, the COVID-19 pandemic, if the world did not collaborate the way it did, I don't know where we would be today. But as a result of the collaboration and the resources being put together, we are having COVID behind us. The same way, we are going to deal with the climate change. And Fakoyen obviously will be sharing on what GCA is doing to galvanize everybody in the world and to bring resources to ensure that there is adaptation to climate change in Africa. And this is going to be possible because of all of us here. With those remarks, I want to thank you once again for coming here, and God bless you.
Thank you, Professor Kiama. I'd now like to invite Babukar Sankare, Lead Operations Advisor of the African Development Bank, to make remarks on behalf of Nene Nabufo, the Director General of East Africa Region of AFDB.
Thank you, Madam. Your Excellency, First Lady Rachel Ruto, Honorable Cabinet Secretary and senior government officials here present, the Chief Executive Officer, Global Center on Adaptation, Dr. Patrick Valoisian, Vice Chancellor and faculty of the University of Nairobi, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. It is my pleasure to be here this morning on the auspicious occasion of supporting Kenyan adaptation leadership, hosted by the Global Center on Adaptation and the Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. I bring you greetings from the African Development Bank and from our Director General, Madam Nena Nwabufo, who could not be at this important event today because of prior engagements. I'm, however, very much humbled to represent her and deliver these remarks on her behalf. It is not in any doubt that climate change impacts are posing a significant threat to sustainable development in Kenya and indeed in the continent at large. Kenya is particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change due to her dependence on climate-sensitive sectors such as agriculture, water, forestry, and energy. As a result, investing in adaptation action and resilience building is crucial to enabled the country to continue to achieve sustainable growth and development, despite changes in climate conditions which have adverse effects on the economy, infrastructure, the environment, and livelihoods of the population. The government of Kenya has prioritized adaptation interventions in its nationally determined contributions. However, financing for adaptation action in the country remains low. A report by the Climate Policy Initiative published in 2021 on the landscape of climate finance in Kenya, the report observed that during the period 2017-2018, only 12% of climate finance went to adaptation action, while 79% went to mitigation activities. This is despite the country's great and urgent need for interventions that promote resilience against climate change impacts, such as droughts, floods, erratic rainfall patterns, crop pests, and diseases. The African Development Bank is, however, very inspired by the commitments and actions being demonstrated by the country's leadership in accelerating and scaling up climate action to address the country's most pressing needs and vulnerabilities. We are confident that with this continued trajectory, Kenya will effectively adapt to the impacts of climate change. As an institution committed to supporting our regional member countries achieve sustainable and inclusive development, climate action is a major priority at the forefront of our agenda. We are playing the necessary strong leadership on climate change, accelerating adaptations, and building resilience. Early this week, ladies and gentlemen, we announced a US $8.9 billion replenishment package, which includes $8.5 billion in core ADF funding and $429 million for the newly created Climate Action Window. This Climate Action Window, ladies and gentlemen, will mobilize up to $13 billion US over time for Africa's low-income countries to address the impacts of climate change. The African Development Bank also mainstreams climate change and green growth issues within all our operations in Kenya. We have a target of 100% to assess all projects in the country for climate risks, and appropriate resilience building, adaptation, and mitigation interventions are incorporated where needed. To enhance access to adaptation finance, the bank and the Global Center on Adaptation are jointly implementing the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, which seeks to mobilize $25 billion United States dollars over 5 years for adaptation action on the continent. Kenya is a beneficiary of this program, and the bank and the Global Center on Adaptation are in the process of providing technical support to build the institutional capacity of the Kenyan National Highway Authority to design and build climate-resilient road infrastructure, an area of investment where the bank has been a very long partner to Kenya. The bank is also supporting the government of Kenya to build resilience in agricultural sector through financing of 30 million unit of accounts under the Building Resilience for Food and Nutrition Security in the Horn of Africa program. It should also be noted that the bank has been supporting Kenya in building reliable climate-proof water supply and sanitation infrastructure, which has so far improved the quality of life for the population through access to clean water for domestic use, industries, and irrigation. Through the Climate for Development Africa Special Fund, the bank has supported the installation of a regional advanced retransmission service to provide hydrometeorologists high-resolution satellite data that can enable early warnings. The station has been gathering high-resolution satellite data to improve severe weather forecasts, which are increasingly being used by various sectors, including agriculture, water, disaster risk management, conflict, and health, as well as communities for contingency planning and resilience building. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya has estimated in its nationally determined contributions that it requires 44 billion United States dollars for adaptation action up to 2030. These resources undoubtedly cannot be raised by government alone. Achieving this target requires strong and strategic partnerships. The African Development Bank has been a long-standing partner of Kenya in realizing the country's development objectives and implementing actions on both climate adaptation and mitigation. We continue to be fully committed to working with the government and people of Kenya to achieve low carbon and climate resilient development and bringing more partners on board. Working together, ladies and gentlemen, in partnership with a strong sense of purpose in Kenya, across the continent of Africa, and indeed in the world at large, we would succeed in addressing climate change, the greatest challenge of our time. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Sankare. So now it's time to tell you about those innovations, and we'll start with the young people of Kenya. I'd like to invite my colleague, Aramide, to tell us about the Kenyan youth-led solutions, which we'll showcase today.
Good morning, Her Excellency, First Lady, thank you. Good morning, Her Excellency, First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Madam Rachel Ruto, Her Excellency, Rosalinda Sopiantuya, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of the Environment and Forestry, Professor S.G. Kiyama, Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, Professor Dr. Patrick Vakoyen, CEO, Global Center on Adaptation, and Distinguished Chair of the Wangari Maathai Institute, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I stand on all other existing protocols. I greet you all. At the GCA, one of our core and strategic mandates is to create sustainable jobs in climate adaptation by promoting youth entrepreneurship with a specific focus on women-owned and led businesses. We do this by supporting climate adaptation innovations, both in ideation and at growth stage, to scale up. Last year, under the AAAP program with the African Development Bank, we launched the African Youth Adaptation Solutions Challenge, a competition to support and promote youth-led enterprises in adaptation with $100,000 each in grant funding and 12 months of business incubation and mentorship. We received 2,000 plus applications to the Youth Adapt Challenge in 2021, and in this year's cohort, over 3,000 applications. To date, we have awarded 35 youth-led enterprises from over 20 African countries, 5 of whom are Kenyan, and you'll hear from some of them today. As the lead for jobs and entrepreneurship at the GCA, I am pleased to highlight some of the early results we have seen so far for last year's cohort. These include increased job creation, improved governance and processes within their businesses. They have been able to train and impact thousands of smallholder farmers. We have seen the doubling of revenue for many of these businesses, while some of them have even gone on to raise additional funding in form of equity and grants. Today, we will hear from 3 of our Youth Adapt winners in Kenya. I will now call on Eric Bosire of Erie Hub, Caroline Mwangi of Kimplanta Seedlings and Nurseries, and Marianne Gichanga of Agri-Tech Analytics. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Let me start it the right way. Your Excellency, First Lady. Good to see you, Mama Rachel. GCA President, Mr. Patrick, good to see you again. My prof, good to see you. And all distinguished guests. I'm waiting for my slide up, yes. So I'll want you to shift your attention to that side. So we are part of the the first cohort that was supported by GCA in partnership with the African Development Bank to support youth-led businesses that are playing a key role in the adaptation sector. So basically, I'll take you through what we do. So my name is Eric Bosire. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called IRIHub Kenya. IRIHub is a short form of irrigation hub. And what we do is we supply farmers with water harvesting mechanisms with solar-powered drip irrigation systems. We are based in Kenya, Nairobi, and the company was founded in 2017. Next slide, please. Yes, so far since inception, we've been able to serve more than 3,000 smallholder farmers in Kenya. We've been able to help farmers actually harvest 40 million cubic liters of water using our water harvesting mechanism. We've been able to reclaim 150,000 acres of arable land using drip irrigation systems, and we've been able to help farmers increase their yield 2 to 6 times. And increasing their yields, meaning increasing their income and all that. So I'll take you through what the Youth Adapt program that we were funded last year, what it has been able to do. So initially, before the fund, we were just 4 employees in the company, and we had only serviced about 850 farmers, and our revenue per month was about $8,400. So after the Youth Adapt program, when they injected the grant funding, we were able to increase manpower. We are now 8 employees. We've been able to service more than 3,000 farmers, and our revenue actually has doubled to about 16,800. A round of applause for that. And you'll get to listen more from my colleagues. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Your Excellency, our First Lady, Madam Rachel Ruto, Madam Soifan, the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, and our CEO from GCA, Professor Patrick, and everybody who is here, all prominent guests, how are you? My name is Caroline Wangari. I'm the founder of Kim Planter Seedlings and Nurseries. We are based here in Kenya in 3 different parts of the country. We are in Kiambu, we are in Kajiado, and we're in Murang'a. Our business is to take care of farmers. We give farmers a head start, a healthy head start. And we do this by providing them with climate-resilient seedlings. We also offer them training on the best practices in agriculture. Through the Youth Adapt program, we are able to support 100,000 farmers. Previously, we were doing about 25,000 farmers. But with the climate-resilient seedlings, we are able to reach out to people in the semi-arid region. Climate change is big, and it's a big problem in agriculture, and we are concerned. Hence, we have set ourselves apart to be climate change advocates, especially in the agricultural space and in the youth space. Luckily, we have gotten some international recognition to do this and gotten a few awards for it. So we are grateful for partners like you who are taking us to the next level. Next slide, please. We are promoting food security in Africa, one climate-resilient seedling after another. Our seedlings are well researched, and they are climate resilient. We distribute these to smallholder farmers, and now with the Youth Adapt, we are distributing these to also marginalized communities. My favorite community is the Maathai community. A child in the Maathai community is having nutritious food thanks to the AAAP program. We are also training them, thank you. We are also training them on the best climate adapt practices that they can adopt. Through this program, the future is very luminous for the communities that we're interacting with. Currently, we are targeting 1.3 smallholder farmers. And these are inclusive of marginalized community. The reason I insist marginalized community is because most of these communities live in semi-arid areas, where they are mostly affected by climate change. We are currently working with 19 primary schools to support them with kitchen garden initiatives. Our target is to reach out to 900 primary schools. That is an average of 20 schools in every county. We are also hoping to take our solution to 5 countries in Africa, most which that are affected by climate change, and are in the most arid regions. The best thing that we can do, rather than just provide the climate resilient seedlings, is also offer them climate smart techniques that they can use even in their urban households. Your support has really gone a long way. Thank you to the EEP. And we also would like to thank the donors who are supporting you to support people like us. With your continued support after this, we are looking forward to reach out to 1.3 million farmers in the sub-Sahara Africa, to scale up our agronomy support, to build more impactful partnerships like the ones we're doing with schools, and to bring on board more climate resilient seedlings. We're also impacting communities and empowering them through direct and indirect employment. Our youth in Kenya do not value agriculture. We also want to change that narrative. Next slide, please. So you can reach out to us through those contacts, and we're very thankful for the support, and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Your Excellency, Madam First Lady, President of GCA, and all protocols observed. My name is Marianne Gishanga, CEO and co-founder, Agritech Analytics. I grew up in Kinangop in a small 2-hectare piece of land with my 7 siblings. My parents were farmers, and through this, they were able to raise and educate us. Today, the same farm cannot sustain my parents, and we have to give handouts for them. And this is because of climate change, soil degradation, and poor farming methods. My company has come up with a crop and soil management tool that combines AI-powered satellite analytics and IoT sensors for soil, crop, and sensors to detect crop pests and diseases and detect and give accurate soil inputs to end hunger in Africa. So we give them, please go back. So this is what we give them on their phones. We detect crop pests and diseases and weed early enough. We issue precise amount of farm inputs, so save on the money that they use. We give them a 21-day weather forecasting to be able to plan and accurate farm harvest predictions that they use for banks to issue loans. We have actually had 98 farmers benefit from this with 1.39 million amount of cash. Then we give them a 15-year of satellite farm data so that they are able to predict and see where they're going to be using whatever they're going to be doing. So our current impact is that we have 2,880 small-scale farmers using our solution, and that we've been able to detect 23 types of diseases and 11 types of crop diseases early enough and communicated to the farmer in good time. The farmer are able to detect crop soil health parameters in order to get accurate farm inputs. Thus, we have really reduced the cost of farming to 43%. We've also increased the farm yields for them by 57% to those who've used our solution for 3 to 6 months, and 75% to the ones that have used our solution for 1 year. Then we've been able to accurately give them the yield predictions. The 98 farmers have benefited from this through loan facilities. We've been measuring them with 21-day weather forecasting, so the farmers are able to plan. So we've been able to acquire these farmers in a span of 3 counties in 6 months, and this has helped them manage their farms digitally. Next slide, please. So with the help of GCA, we've just been awarded this year, so we are working with them for the next for 2023. So we'll be able to acquire 15,000 more farmers by the end of 2023. We'll be able to have reduced the farm input budget for the farmers by 60%, grow detectable crop pests by 31 from 23 types that we have currently, and 23 types of diseases from the 11 types that we have. We'll be able to increase their farm yields by over 80%, and by issuing them this weather forecasting, the farmers will be able to plan. We're going to be expanding to 20 counties, up from the 3 counties that we have currently, and we're going to be able to help 700 farmers acquire loans. Because we've helped 98 farmers, when we help the 700 farmers with our yield prediction, we'll be talking of 10 million shillings. And then currently, we are only 7 in our company, direct employees, we'll be having 20 more youth and women in our company directly, and of course thousands indirectly through the indirect activities that they do in the farms. The last slide, please. So you can see from the far end what we found in the farms when we were meeting these farmers, and this is what we have made them realize. The women and the kids are happy. Thank you so much for us and for helping us end hunger in Africa. Thank you.
Those are really, truly impressive results, which shows a little bit of well-targeted support can go a really long way. So the next innovation is the adaptation villages that have been implemented by the National Environment Management Authority. And I'd like to invite Ms. Wangari Kirumba, National Implementing Entity Coordinator.
Your Excellency, the First Lady, Madam Rachel Ruto, Honorable Cabinet Secretary, Madam Soipan Tuya, distinguished guests, Director General NEMA, Mr. Mamwebi Mamu. It's my great pleasure to present to us a model that we have used as NEMA under the Adaptation Fund Program implementation process, a concept that while we were executing or implementing the Adaptation Fund Program, a concept that we found working, sort of an amplified, locally led solution that is targeting villages. And I'll just take you through the fundamentals around the adaptation village. One is that it is village targeted, and in this context, the most vulnerable villages targeted, trying to reach those who have not been reached by any other forms of support. Importantly also is that it is a water provisioning infrastructure, but beyond the water provisioning infrastructure is that we are accompanying that infrastructure with learning. Learning and meeting the knowledge gap around the communities, presenting what we know or what is coming up as technology, new technologies around the villages. And so this space is now being used to undertake technology transfer. Progressively, we want to use this as green centers, where as part of basic outputs of these centers is planting of a minimum 500,000 tree seedlings in those centers. As we move forward, we intend to take advantage of what we know is a very important discussion that is going on right now on democratizing carbon markets, so that as these villages begin to uptake technology, to uptake the greening work, to uptake forestry and other interventions, we also introduce them to the carbon market space. The rest of them are photos, and I want to thank the organizers for affording us this opportunity to present to you the Adaptation Villages concept. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. So now the next innovation has been described as the most exciting development in urban spaces in Africa, but I think around the world. And we have a short video. It's the upgrading work that's been done in Mukuru. We have a short video. And after that, I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Patrick Verkoinen, CEO of the GCA and distinguished chair of the Wangari Maathai Institute, to tell us about this and give us an address on supporting Kenya's adaptation leadership.
Like informal settlements in cities across Africa, Mukuru, one of the largest informal settlements in Nairobi, Kenya, is particularly vulnerable to climate change. This is due to its environmentally fragile location, high levels of poverty, and political and institutional marginalization, resulting in the absence of risk-reducing infrastructure and support to cope with shocks.
And the story of Mukuru is a story that needs to be written, because Mukuru is the only place you pay to go to the toilet. You pay 170%.
I think we have a bit of a technical glitch there, so Patrick, if I could invite you to start with your address,
You pay
please.
more for electricity than in any part of Nairobi. And yet, these are the
Such a great video.
who are the
But you will
bottom
follow
of
it
the
also.
pyramid.
The Mukuru approach has taught us that improving climate resilience in informal settlements requires the urgent coordination of several key strategies. The first strategy is the meaningful engagement of
will be the climate catastrophe of the world. My name is Patrick Verkooyen. I'm the CEO of the Global Center on Adaptation. And we have to do something to stop this, because Africa is ground zero of the climate crisis. Africa is ground zero of the climate crisis. And it's a crisis that strikes at the beating heart of our communities, particularly the women and girls who are the most vulnerable. But Madam First Lady, Your Excellency, we must not be overwhelmed by the enormity of the crisis. Today, I'm humbled to address you and others as indeed the distinguished chair of the Wangari Maathai Institute. And what a better way to do this in your presence, Madam First Lady, in the presence of the Cabinet Secretary, but also in the presence of a very impactful woman, the daughter of Wangari Maathai, who is here with us today as well. I'm very humble for you coming here today, Wanjira. Because I'm here today because I believe, I know that the real story of climate change in Africa is not of disaster and despair. Quite frankly, it's a story of resilience, of solidarity, of opportunities towards a greener, safer, more resilient Africa. Because if there ever was a time to strengthen adaptation on the continent, here in Africa, in Kenya, it is now. I'm strongly convinced, Madam First Lady, Your Excellency, adaptation, the topic of today, is unstoppable. And with that, Africa is unstoppable. And nowhere is this unstoppable spirit more clear, more evident than in Kenya, a country, an institute which I now consider home. It was here in Kenya that I saw people mobilizing to respond to the climate emergency. It was here in Kenya where I met a community in Makueni County that built a sand dam which was supporting 6,000 families, where there was previously only rocks and a dry riverbed. There are now trees and a kitchen garden and a brighter future. It was here in Kenya that I met these young entrepreneurs who turned the climate crisis into a business opportunity. And it is here in Kenya that President Ruto, your husband, has put climate at the heart of Kenya's growth agenda. And Your Excellency, Madam Ruto, First Lady of the nation, you yourself, you exemplify the leadership that Kenya is blessed with. Because if actions speak louder than words, then we all can take inspiration from your actions to restore, amongst others, 200 hectares of forest. We can take inspiration from your leadership to ensure women are at the center of our fight against climate change. Your Excellency, at the Global Center on Adaptation and at the Wangari Maathai Institute, we are here to walk the talk alongside you and your African neighbors to make this transition to a climate resilient society swiftly and particularly boldly. Because in my strong conviction, the only solution is to think big and to act fast at scale. And it's with this bold vision in mind that we launched very recently the world's largest adaptation investment program here in Africa. It's the largest adaptation program in the world. The Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, AAAP. What is it? It's an impact program to speed up, to scale up adaptation for those living on the front lines. In just 18 months, what are the results? In 19 countries, $3.5 billion of projects, millions of farmers, tens of thousands of jobs created, billions of dollars flowing, the force of nature harnessed. And what is true for Africa is particularly true for Kenya. So, Honorable Vice Chancellor, you, sir, are shaping Kenya's future by shaping Kenya's youth. And through our collaboration between the Global Center on Adaptation and the University of Nairobi, we will unlock the $20 billion pipeline of investment required in infrastructure here in Kenya. So that when the rains come and the flood waters rise, your Vice Chancellor, our families will still be able to go to work. Students will not be left out of school. And a pregnant mother will still be able to go to the hospital. So to the young entrepreneurs, what an inspiration you are. Indeed, it was my privilege to award 35 African youth-led enterprises, 5 from Kenya, of course, 5 from Kenya, 100,000 each to scale innovative business solutions. We just heard from drought-resilient seedlings to designing climate-smart irrigation, as explained by Eric. Africa, in fact, indeed the world, can learn from the innovation and excellence that is so evident in Kenya. Because let us not forget, what happens in Kenya will not stay in Kenya. And Honorable Minister, if I might say, what a force of nature you are. Today marks a path-breaking milestone, a milestone that celebrates the work of communities and government, working hand in hand to implement a locally led people's plan for building climate resilience. Mukuru is leading the way in developing this new approach. Working together with the residents, the Nairobi County government has declared Mukuru a special planning area with needs, with specific needs, tailored needs that could not be met through a more traditional urban master plan approach. And this has brought together the Mukuru community to seek solutions and face challenges together. So what have we learned in this journey? Listening, consulting, and acting on local needs are the basic ingredients to unlock the enormous potential and creativity of local communities. And together, through the AAAP, we are already amplifying your success in Mukuru across the continent indeed. So residents of Mukuru who are here today, I want to tell you, thank you. Thank you for pushing, thank you for advocating for change. You are the trailblazers who have created the path for the urban poor who are living in the eye of the storm. So, Excellencies, in accepting, Honorable Vice Chancellor, the appointment of distinguished chair of the Wangari Maathai Institute, quite frankly, I accepted more than a title. I accepted the responsibility not only to support your vision, to anchor Kenya as the center of innovation, as the center of excellence, but to amplify the vital role this institute can, should, and will play in supporting Africa's journey towards a resilient and prosperous future. Your Excellency, Madam First Lady, I am determined, I'm committed, and I'm confident because of the extraordinary leadership this country, your country, provides. From the students and faculty of this esteemed university, the best university in Africa, to the women farmers and Matthew McQueen, from the community at the front line of the climate crisis in Mukuru, to the youth entrepreneurs that are here with us today. Kenya, Madam Minister, under your leadership, under President Ruto's overall leadership, is leading an adaptation awakening on the ground that leaves no homes unprotected, no businesses unprepared, no community exposed, out of harm's way. We can do it. In fact, we are doing it. And why? Because we're all Kenyans in this crisis. I thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. I think we have the video now.
Like informal settlements in cities across Africa, Mukuru, one of the largest informal settlements in Nairobi, Kenya, is particularly vulnerable to climate change. This is due to its environmentally fragile location, high levels of poverty, and political and institutional marginalization, resulting in the absence of risk-reducing infrastructure and support to cope with shocks.
And the story of Mukuru is a story that needs to be written, because Mukuru is the only place you pay to go to the toilet. You pay 170% for water that others are paying in Karen and Lavington. You pay more for electricity than in any part of Nairobi. And yet, these are the people who are the bottom of the pyramid.
The Mukuru approach has taught us that improving climate resilience in informal settlements requires the urgent coordination of several key strategies. The first strategy is the meaningful engagement of residents to make planning decisions. The second strategy is a genuine partnership between government, residents, civil society, and academia. Residents know best what problems they face, their relative priorities, and what solutions will best serve them. The third strategy is rethinking conventional planning approaches and legislation to confront the vulnerabilities and resource scarcity in informal settlements. The fourth strategy is recognizing the interdependent, multi-sectoral challenges faced in informal settlements. Improvements in no one sector alone can solve them. It is crucial to develop sectoral plans in tandem. The Global Center on Adaptation is working with the Mukuru community and their representatives, including the Akiba Mashinani Trust, to capture lessons for locally led, inclusive pathways towards climate resilience for cities around the world.
the story of Mukuru needs to be written. So we've done just that, and we've produced a guide on Mukuru. I mean, when we say guide, it's to help other communities learn from what happened in Mukuru. But even as we worked on the guide, we realized that the key to the success in Mukuru was the ownership and the fact that this was a process that was born out of there. So others can learn from it, but they have to go through similar journeys. It's not a magic that you can bottle and carry to other places. So we have the book now, and we'd very much like the First Lady to launch it for us, please. We also have some of the community members from Mukuru here. So Madam, if we could ask you to please launch the book, that would be an honor. Oh, for a picture, that's right, yeah. So we have it here. So I'd also invite the Mukuru community to join us.
Let everybody be on stage so we're ready. Maybe the stage goes a little bit. Let's move the lecture a little bit.
Thank you. At this moment, I would like to request Professor Kiama, the First Secretary of Nairobi, to invite the Cabinet Secretary and then to invite the First Lady. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I didn't recognize that Wajira, you were here. Yeah. Wajira Maathai worked with us and has worked with us to co-develop and conceptualize the Wangari Maathai Institute. So she was, so we are glad that you are here today. Mine is really my honor and duty to invite the Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Forestry, Your Excellency, or Honorable Loslida Tuya. And I don't know why the ministry is called Environment and Forestry, given that, and I don't know, and given most of the trees are in people's private land, isn't it, Denya? And very few are in the forest, so that I'm just emphasizing this, that you have much more trees than those you see in the forest, yeah, when we are talking about forestry. So that the issue is seen in holistic issue of environment, yeah. So we just want to invite you now to come and address this gathering, please, Los Leader. Yeah.
Your Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Mama Rachel Ruto, the CEO of the Global Center on Adaptation, and the distinguished chair of the Wangari Maathai Institute, Patrick Vakoyen, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, and I'm an alumni of Nairobi, or the University of Nairobi. So I'm really happy to be here. Professor Kiama, the former VC, Professor Mbithi, all protocol observed, the other leadership of the university present here, the representative of the African Development Bank, and the team from the Global Center on Adaptation. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Before I make my very brief remarks, because for me being here for the first time at the Wangari Maathai Institute, I would request Your Excellency that we just have a few remarks from Wanjira Maathai, from the WRI, and also the daughter of Wangari Maathai. It would be good to hear a few remarks from you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. That was a bit of a surprise. Your Excellency, the First Lady, Madam Rachel Ruto, wonderful to see you always. Madam CS Soipantuya, thank you. Patrick, thank you for accepting this invitation to be the distinguished chair of the Wangari Maathai Institute. Very honored. Vice Chancellor, my friend, Stephen Kiama, and of course the former Chancellor, Vice Chancellor Mbithi. It's good to see all of you. I actually just wanted to say it's such a privilege to be back at the Institute. Professor Kiama, it's been a little moment that this represents for adaptation globally, but also the leadership. Our governments are already providing significant leadership. We just came from COP where we found out that actually most African governments are spending upwards of 1.5% of GDP on climate adaptation, even as they lose 15% of GDP. They're punching well above their weight already. And so this is a crucial time for us to galvanize. And those examples of what our young people are doing, extremely inspiring. But I also, working for a research institution, want to acknowledge that this is a really important opportunity for us at the University of Nairobi, and interestness around climate has increased. So too has finance for climate research increased. But here's what's scary. Of all the climate research investments across the world, only 4% come to Africa. Only 4%. And so even though we are punching above our weight, we are most vulnerable. 9 of 10 of the most vulnerable countries globally are in Africa. We are receiving very little investment in climate research. And even worse, of that 4%, almost most of it is going to institutions that are either American or European. So this research is not even African-led. So this moment, I think, just to see some of the examples we've seen, is about African leadership in research and how we invest in that and build on that. And this is a shining moment for that. So Patrick, thank you very much. And thank you, Madam CS.
Thank you very much, Wanjira. And VC, talking of the naming of the ministry, the other day I was in a place where somebody referred to me as Waziri wa Mustuni. So there's a bit of thinking that needs to go into that. Your Excellency, I'm very, very much delighted to be here today. It's of great significance to be at the Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. And in as much as we have a lot of gloom around the adverse effects of climate change around us, we're talking about the droughts, the rising lakes, the floods, and so on. It is very inspirational and encouraging to see our young people at the forefront of providing solutions. And I wish to just congratulate our young people. We have been having a struggle with the young Kenyans not wanting to associate with agriculture, and that is where we have a lot of opportunity for us to engage in adaptation, resilience building. So this is very encouraging, and we want to say that for the partnership with the Global Center on Adaptation, this is the way to go. I would like to thank the Global Center for Adaptation, the Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies, and the University of Nairobi for convening this forum at a very critical moment when we are just faced with the ravaging impacts of climate change that have seen tremendous loss in lives, livestock, wildlife, and livelihood. In poverty, and global warming will jeopardize food security. Even as we pursue our efforts to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade, a global target in the Paris Agreement, it's not safe for Africa. Neither is it safe for Kenya. We are part of Africa. 1.5 degrees centigrade is 3 degrees and above for our continent. And the climate risks will continue to escalate quickly with higher temperatures causing irreversible impacts of climate change. Therefore, adaptation remains extremely crucial to us. Feasible solutions already exist, but more financial support must be channeled to reach the vulnerable communities, and the climate adaptation policies have to move beyond planning into implementation. Your Excellency, how do we make Kenya safe, resilient, and prosperous in this warming world? The pledged adaptation finance by the developed countries may not be forthcoming in the manner we want to see. Multiple constraints preclude mobilization and unlocking of adaptation finance to enable our communities adapt to the impacts of climate change. Our global champion for the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, the AAAP, who is none other than our own president, His Excellency William Ruto, has continuously said that adaptation is critical for Africa's survival. As such, we need to chart a resilient pathway to minimize inequity, conflicts, and development challenges that may constrain communities' ability to adapt to the impacts of climate change. The window of opportunity for action is rapidly closing, and science has made it clear that there is no alternative but to act fast and act together. In this regard, Kenya has demonstrated its commitment and leadership by putting in place coordinated structures and instruments that have indeed amplified the profile of adaptation at the local level. Your Excellency, for instance, the Financing Locally Led Climate Action, the FLOCA program, has established the first national scale model of decentralizing climate finance to translate Kenya's climate agenda into scaled up action on the ground. The recognition of locally led adaptation will indeed drive change and amplify meaningful citizen engagement in climate-related decision-making. And the FLOCA program is one that we are keenly looking into unlocking and running with it in partnership with the county governments. Your Excellency, as we celebrate Kenya's leadership on local adaptation action, there are award-winning actors whom we have seen this morning who have demonstrated their exemplary innovation to the world through their work on addressing the impacts of climate change and building the resilience among the most vulnerable communities. I applaud you for leveraging on your expertise to show the world that locally led action is critical for addressing climate change. Coming to grips with the climate crisis will not be easy for our continent. Therefore, as government, civil society, the private sector, academia, local communities, we must step up our actions in a collective manner. Adaptation options and solutions require long-term planning and accelerated implementation. It is therefore important that we close the adaptation gaps, recognizing the constraints that remain in our regions with regards to adapting to the impacts of climate change. Adaptation can generate multiple additional benefits. As such, let us ensure that our adaptation needs are matched with the long-term and adequate support. Let us prioritize and scale up adaptation investment so that we can strengthen the adaptive capacity and the resilience of our communities. As we do this, let's also work towards mobilizing our efforts to operationalizing the loss and damage fund, which now is available to us, that is agreed in the COP27 to cushion our population from the impacts of climate change. Finally, Your Excellency, I wish to welcome the GCA to partner with us in preparations for the African Climate Summit that was called for by His Excellency, the President Ruto, which is intended to generate ideas for innovations around investments for climate in Africa. And the discussions that we have had with the CEO, we actually welcome your partnership in making the climate summit successful in the coming year. For the University of Nairobi, I am glad to know this morning that we are actually partnering in restoring the Ngong Hills ecosystem. And we shall be in the run-up to planting 15 billion trees, which, Your Excellency, I'm really grateful that you've come out to be one of our strongest champions. And we need many more champions to break down the fact that 15 billion may sound so big, but if you break it down to each Kenyan, you are only required to plant 300, only 300 trees in the next 10 years. I think it's doable. We can do it. And so the University of Nairobi, we welcome the partnership for you having adopted 500 acres of the Ngong Hills forest. We are happy for that, and we will keep expanding the partnership. Your Excellency, thank you for adopting 200 hectares of the Kakamega forest for restoration. We welcome more partnerships from different players because, as Patrick says, that we are all Kenyan in this crisis. Indeed, we are all together in the efforts and the action that is required. And we are also telling Kenyans, during your birthday, your children's birthdays, your friends' birthdays, let us rally around planting trees during our birthdays, because indeed, trees are life-giving. And the President will be leading from the front. Her Excellency, the First Lady, did her bit. During her birthday, she planted 300 trees with the children in State House. And as you can tell, during one event, during her birthday, she surpassed the 300 tree requirement that we need for each Kenyan. Your Excellency, keep doing that for us. The President will be following suit on 21st of December. Coincidentally, we will be doing it at the Ngong Forest, Professor Kiama. So you have no choice but to be with us to help the President lead the front by planting his bit of the trees during his birthday. And we will be having corresponding concurrent planting in each of the counties of this country. And as a matter of policy, again, we are leading from the front as the executive for each and every function that any cabinet secretary, any permanent principal secretary, and our First Lady, I'm sure she has joined us in that effort, we are required to plant not less than 200 trees. So University of Nairobi, Wangari Maathai Institute, you owe us 199 trees, because this morning we planted one. So and we are waiting for the plan. And my DG from NEMA is here. Please make that happen. Your Excellency, even as we go for Christmas, one more ask, don't cut down a Christmas tree. And again, the First Lady here is leading us from the front. She informed me the other day that the Christmas trees around one of her establishments are actually live Christmas trees. So let us stop cutting down Christmas trees. Instead, plant a live one. Don't pick a plastic one, because we also want to move away from plastics. Let's plant live trees starting this Christmas. I think it's a small ask for us as Kenyans. And with no time, we will realize our 15 billion trees as our contribution to the globe in enhancing our carbon sinks. Thank you very much for listening to me. And with those brief remarks, it is now my pleasure to invite Her Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, to make her remarks. Welcome, Your Excellency.
We may be seated. Honorable Rosalinda Soipan-Tuya, our Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Forestry, the representative of the Director General, East Africa Region, Africa Development Group, and representatives from the bank, Professor Patrick Vegoyen, CEO Global Center on Adaptation, Professor Stephen Kiama, Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, and our former Professor Mbithi, our host, Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies, and it's good to see you, Wangari. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my distinct pleasure to join you and celebrate Kenya's leadership on local adaptation action. Before I proceed, allow me to relay greetings from His Excellency, President William Samoei Ruto. I want to thank the African Development Bank, Global Center on Adaptation, Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies, and the University of Nairobi for their invitation to support Kenya's adaptation solutions. I also want to applaud the launch of the Mukuru Case Study Guide for building climate resilience through locally led planning in urban informal settlement areas. Ladies and gentlemen, globally, approximately 1 billion people currently live in informal settlements, primarily in urban areas in low and middle income countries. Most informal settlements lack piped water, safe drinking water, adequate provision for sanitation, drainage, and public services, including mobility. In addition, informal settlement areas are often the hotspots of vulnerability, as evidenced by the recurrent environmental and climate-related shocks. Despite this exposure and vulnerability, their role in spearheading disaster risk preparedness and response is often overlooked. Ladies and gentlemen, the Horn of Africa region, including Kenya, is experiencing the worst drought in 40 years. Approximately 4.3 million Kenyans have been severely affected, most of whom are women and children who suffer from food insecurity, water insecurity, and livelihood loss. But Kenya is not unique. Climate events have been recorded all around the globe with devastating impact on people's lives, natural resources, and the physical infrastructure upon which they depend on. Due to drought, many children have now dropped out of school, and because of this, I will be rallying behind the government to support supplementary school feeding program with particular emphasis on promoting food security and good nutrition as an incentive for families to enroll and keep their children in school. Consequently, relieving parents from having to budget for lunches, boost their incomes, and help to reduce poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kenya government has been forced to reallocate funds budgeted for education, health, and other priority services as a result of climate change. These trade-offs the government is forced to make between indispensable public goods are evidence that climate change is directly threatening our people's lives, health, and the social economic future of our beloved country. I want to applaud the African Adaptation Acceleration Program initiated by the African Development Bank and the Global Center for Adaptation that aims to mobilize $25 billion over 5 years to accelerate and scale climate adaptation action across the continent. This ambition will fast-track the implementation for climate-smart digital technologies for agriculture and food security. It will help scale up investments for climate resilience, urban and rural infrastructure in key sectors, namely water, transport, energy, and water management for a circular economy. The program has also identified youth empowerment for entrepreneurship and job creation in climate adaptation and resilience as one of the focus areas. Ladies and gentlemen, I take this opportunity to remind us to support the President's effort in increasing the forest cover in Kenya to address the devastating effects of climate change and desertification. Our cabinet has already approved the National Tree Growing Restoration Campaign, which targets to mobilize the nation in planting and growing 15 billion trees by the year 2032, translating to 30% national tree cover. The campaign is part of a long-term measure to protect the environment and our heritage for both present and future generations. The campaign, which takes immediate effect, requires that all public engagements presided over by the President, the Deputy President, and all other cadre of state or public officers be marked by planting between 200 to 500 trees and fruit tree seedlings of various categories. This campaign and many other initiatives demonstrate the government's commitment to tackling climate change. Closer home, under my organization, Mama Doing Good, I have adopted 3 strategic pillars, namely women economic empowerment, environment and climate action, and faith diplomacy, to continue improving the lives and livelihoods of women in Kenya and around the world. In women economic empowerment, we are focusing on financial inclusion, financial health, capacity building, livelihoods, and trade. In the area of environment and climate action, we are focusing on green economy, health, and wellness. In faith diplomacy is about enhancing our family and national values and mercy works. This nexus builds on over a decade of work on women economic empowerment, which has grown organically at its onset as Joyful Women Organization in 2009. I look forward to inspiring a women-led climate action that reduces vulnerability to climate-related events and improve the adaptive capacity of society to climate shocks through green economy. In addition, localizing climate change response and actions from the international and national discussions to practical actions and solutions at the local level. I believe with strategic partnership and cooperation, we will be able to unlock credit and financing for adaptation actions for youth and women-led enterprises to address climate challenges faced by vulnerable communities in Kenya, while at the same time creating jobs. Finally, let me thank the African Development Bank for their friendship, partnership, and commitment they've provided to my office, and also to the African Adaptation Acceleration Program. Let me also thank the Global Center on Adaptation, Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies, and the University of Nairobi for providing leadership to close the adaptation gap by putting climate adaptation and resilience at the center of their policies, programs, and institutions. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and may the Lord bless you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, and please accept our gratitude for joining us today and inspiring us with your leadership. So before I invite Professor Leonida Kerubo, Dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology at the University of Nairobi, to make closing remarks, I'd just like to tell you that the guide that was launched is available online, and we have cards for you which we'll distribute at the end of this, so you can take a look. We actually also have with us Jane Viru, the head of the Akiba Mashnani Trust, which had a leadership role in the process and also in the guide, developing the guide. So Jane, if you could please just stand for us, that would be great. So she's here, you can speak to her, she will tell you. And we actually had one more innovation to share with you, which we'll do during the group photo, if we may. So Professor Leonida Kerubo, could I invite you please to make closing remarks?
Thank you very much, MC. Your Excellency, First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Madam Rachel Ruto, Your Excellency, Cabinet Secretary of Minister of Environment and Forestry, Honorable Rosalind Tunya, the Chief Executive Office, GCA, Professor Patrick McCoyan, and also the distinguished chair of WMI Institute, that is the Wangari Maathai Institute, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, Professor Stephen Kiama, all invited guests, partners, staff and students of the University of Nairobi, ladies and gentlemen. I will begin my closing remarks by first appreciating our First Lady for making time to participate in this important activity of spearheading, which is spearheaded by the Faculty of Science and Technology through the Wangari Maathai Institute of Peace and Environmental Studies in partnership with Global Center on Adaptation towards supporting the Kenyan adaptation leadership. First Lady, we are aware that you are passionate and fully support the issue of climate change mitigation. We fully support you and the President's initiative of each person planting a total of 300 trees, seedlings, as one of the ways to counter climate change and conservation of the environment. We also support all the other initiatives which you have spearheaded towards climate change mitigation, including the youth. If there is any opportunity for partnership with the Faculty of Science and Technology, we invite you, or we would like to really partner, not only in this particular avenue, but other avenues. I want to thank the Chief Executive Officer, Global Center on Adaptation and Distinguished Chair of Wangari Maathai Institute, Professor Patrick McCoyan, for choosing Wangari Maathai Institute as a vehicle for accelerating climate change adaptation in Africa. I also want to acknowledge the presence of the Excellency Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Rosalinda Tuya. We would like also to venues, like for example, we can help provide policy briefs based on the category, and more specifically being one of the founder members of Wangari Maathai Institute, in the forefront of forging relevant partnerships and spearheading issues, acceleration, climate change mitigation. I want to thank the organizers of this meeting and the rest of the staff members of the University of Nairobi who are here today. With these few remarks, may I hand over to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kerubo. At this moment, I will request you to be upstanding for the national anthem. And after that, you allow the First Lady and entourage to leave, and then we'll go for refreshment in the lawns.
Yes, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have just had Her Excellency Rachel Ruto address us on at the Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. They have addressed a number of issues, including how the country can accelerate the adaptation in the country, not only in Kenya but in the globe at large. We have also heard from the Chief Executive Officer of the GCA, who is a Professor Patrick Vakoyan. He has called for more collaboration, not only with government but also non-governmental organization, adding that indeed the climate change issue is an issue that needs more urgency. Ladies and gentlemen, the event has been taking place at the fabled Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. Why this particular location? Wangari Maathai was a Kenyan social environmentalist and political activist who is remembered for her far-reaching work in championing for environmental conservation. Wangari Maathai is also remembered for winning the Nobel Peace Prize, but more especially in the year 1977, Wangari Maathai founded the Green Belt movement, which until the time of her death had mobilized over 30 million women to plant trees. The Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, who was also present at this event, that is Madame Rosalinda Soipan, has called for increased planting of trees among Kenyans. She has urged each and every one of us to plant at least a tree during our birthday celebration, something that has already been happened during the birthday party of Her Excellency Rachel Ruto. She has called for an increased culture of planting trees, since it's only by planting trees that we can contributing to the ending climate change effects. We can do that by planting trees. Other ways that we can do this, if at all you have a business, you need to ensure that you follow the stipulated rules and regulations, not only, for the sake of following the law, but since this also contributes to combating the climate change effects. More to that, ladies and gentlemen, we have all been asked to uphold the other various ways, like which contribute to the zero emissions, whereby, ladies and gentlemen, you can be at the forefront of recycling, because essentially plastic contributes to the adverse effects of climate change. But from the Wangari Maathai Institute of Peace and Environmental Studies, which you can see right behind me, this is where scholars and environmental champions come to carry out their research that goes a long way in helping us find solutions that will help us end these adverse effects of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Glasgow where COP26 took place, an agreement was made that by the year 2050 we should have reduced the global emissions to zero. One of the ways of doing that is coming up with innovations, that will help us get there. Institutes like this are the ones that will help us get there, since with places like this where you can do your research, you will be able to come up with innovations that will help us make progress towards achieving that. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a successful event here. The subject matter for discussion, which was supporting Kenyan adaptation leadership. Plant more trees, plant trees during your birthday, and by so doing, we will be getting closer towards addressing these climate change, adverse climate change effects. But from here, I believe this is where we cap it off. This has been the University of Nairobi channel, and I have been your host, Edwin Austin. If only my camera operator can show you this beautiful institute. Yeah, just show it. You are not listening, yeah? No, it's not quiet. Just show it.
Like informal settlements in cities across Africa, Mukuru, one of the largest informal settlements in Nairobi, Kenya, is particularly vulnerable to climate change. This is due to its environmentally fragile location, high levels of poverty, and political and institutional marginalization, resulting in the absence of risk-reducing infrastructure and support to cope with shocks.
And the story of Mukuru is a story that needs to be written, because Mukuru is the only place you pay to go to the toilet. You pay 170% for water that others are paying in Karen and Lavington. You pay more for electricity than in any part of Nairobi. And yet, these are the people who are the bottom of the pyramid.
The Mukuru approach has taught us that improving climate resilience in informal settlements requires the urgent coordination of several key strategies. The first strategy is the meaningful engagement of residents to make planning decisions. The second strategy is a genuine partnership between government, residents, civil society, and academia. Residents know best what problems they face, their relative priorities, and what solutions will best serve them. The third strategy is rethinking conventional planning approaches and legislation to confront the vulnerabilities and resource scarcity in informal settlements. The fourth strategy is recognizing the interdependent, multi-sectoral challenges faced in informal settlements. Improvements in no one sector alone can solve them. It is crucial to develop sectoral plans in tandem. The Global Center on Adaptation is working with the Mukuru community and their representatives, including the Akiba Mashinani Trust, to capture lessons for locally led, inclusive pathways towards climate resilience for cities around the world.